Okay. If it doesn't work, I think I'm gonna die. All right, this is the third try in trying to do this live stream. Uh, I wish, I wish, I wish it wasn't, but it is. Oh, I've been working on this for 30 minutes and I haven't gotten anywhere. Um, so let's take it one step at a time. Let's do chapter one. I may need to remove this just so I can see it on my phone. Um, yeah, so all the stream stuff looks fine. I don't see any. Okay, is this going on my stream? Oh yeah, it's going. All right, let's hope this is all fine. Let's get rid of this. No, we can keep Keith. Let's get rid of capture card. Let's get rid of these. No, let's move these. Boom, D's. And then let's keep the cigarettes there. So I'm trying to do a really low maintenance stream. This is gonna be real chill. Yeah, hopefully this should go well. Much to my chagrin, the last few attempts have not been very, very successful, but I think this one should hopefully be pretty good. Yeah, so if you watched the last stream, not the last stream, but the last stream, well, no, not that last stream, 2 streams ago, if you watched yesterday's stream, you will know that, you know, Abby got taken. She's at the pizzeria now. Chica was about to kill her, but Mike stepped in and he saved her. And he killed Freddy, and he killed Bonnie, and he killed Chica the bunny, and they're dead because of Mike. And now he's reaping the consequences. Mike got his comeuppance because the cupcake is now attacking him. And Abby ran away, but she is getting hunted by Foxy now. And that's where the last chapter left off. You know, it's almost like that wasn't worth an hour and a half of reading, and that I could have just described it to you in 2 minutes. It's crazy. Although Mike could feel chomping teeth against the bandages on his leg, he was pretty sure that the cupcake was getting mostly a mouthful of gauze and padding. It hadn't yet managed to sink its teeth into the meat of his leg. Mike flung his leg against the floor, using the hard surface to scrape the cupcake off him. The cupcake tumbled back. Mike immediately scrambled toward the cattle prod. When Mike was still a couple feet from the weapon, he stretched out his fingers. He was almost... Mike screamed, "Yow!" As a jagged jolt of pain shot up his leg. He looked back. The cupcake had reattached, and this time it got a better grip. It had a healthier mouthful of Mike's calf, and it was starting to gnaw its way up Josh Hutcherson's leg like it was an ear of corn. Mike flipped over and started using his right leg to kick the cupcake off his left leg. The cupcake hung on as Mike stomped at it. Once, twice, 6, 7 times. Finally, his heel managed to land square in the center of the cupcake's googly-eyed face. The blow wrenched the cupcake free of Mike's leg. Unfortunately, it took a good-sized chunk of Josh Hutcherson's calf with it when it tumbled away. Mike was hit with a wave of nausea, but he ignored it. He also ignored the rush of liquid warmth pouring down his leg. He had to get the cattle prod. Mike surged toward the prod, and he grabbed it. He fumbled to find the power switch. A clatter following by a wispy buzz let Mike know the cupcake was once again in motion. The buzzing sound grew louder, and Mike knew the thing had launched itself toward the back of his leg. his head. Mike spun from his stomach to his back. He brought up the cattle prod. His timing was impeccable. When he pointed the cattle prod to the space above his head, the prod skewered the cupcake right through the back tooth mouth. A spark show similar to the one Mike had seen on stage, but a smaller scale, blew up right in front of his face. The sparks came from the cupcake's round white eyes. Mike flicked the cattle prod, sending the cupcake flying. It hit the floor, rolled, and was still. That was when Mike's mind provided him with a sick version of what would have happened if he hadn't turned over. The cupcake would have landed on the back of Mike's head, and it would have chewed through him the same way it had gone through the skull of the man Mike had found in the parts and service room. Mike shook off the unwelcome inner movie. He concentrated on getting to his feet. Abby risked a peek around the bright red and gold side of a big arcade machine. Abby didn't know what game it was. She immediately shrank back into her hiding spot. Ooh! Foxy was standing at the front of the arcade. Next to the Smash Prize cabinet Abby had darted past less than a minute before. The animatronic, who used to be Abby's friend, was turning his head from side to side. His eyes, which were really, really bright, looked mad. He was trying to find Abby, and not for anything good. Or maybe Abby was wrong. Maybe Foxy was still her friend. Maybe he wasn't mad at her. Maybe he was worried for her. She decided to take another itsy bitsy look. I think I missed that when I read that. That's a reference to the idea that Foxy is a good guy in Fnaf 1 because he doesn't jump scare you. He just like goes into the room, so he's checking on you. That's actually funny. That's actually really funny. That's actually really funny. That's actually really funny. That's actually really funny. Abby braced herself against the side of the big game cabinet. She started to lean forward and her hand slid. Tinny music busted out. The machine's lights fired up. Pings and dings and beeps blipped all over. Foxy's head whipped around. He shot his gaze toward the look at me machine. That's one of Foxy's new powers. He can... I'm not gonna say that. Abby flattened herself against the cold metal side of the machine, while it continued to scream, "She's over here!" Abby's finger must have grazed the power button. Dumb, she thought. She should have been more careful. She shouldn't have tried to look again. She squeezed her eyes shut as she heard the stomp, stomp, stomp of Foxy's approaching footsteps. Then she chastised herself for being such a stupid baby. She shot away from the noisy machine and hurtled toward the ball pit. Once there, she quickly and quietly lowered herself into the sea of many colored plastic balls. Right before she pulled her head under the surface, Abby snuck a look back toward where she'd been hiding. Foxy had reached the still shrilling cabinet. He looked down at it and looked around. Abby kept very still beneath the plastic balls. She held her breath as if she was underwater. Mike, limping heavily, reached the center of the dining room. He checked the stage. Freddie and Bonnie were still prone on the stage floor. Mike looked toward the small stage. It was empty. Where was Foxy? "Abby!" Mike called softly. He'd seen her go toward the arcade. He headed that way. Mike was still several feet from the arcade when he heard a voice calling his name. A child's voice. Mike turned, and he felt the blood drain from his face. Standing in the archway that led to the lobby and main corridor was a little boy. A little boy with tousled black hair and bow-like lips. "Garrett?" Mike whispered. So for you guys who don't know, that was actually a deleted scene from the Fnaf movie. They didn't put it in the bonus material in the Blu-ray, because they're idiots and they didn't put freaking anything on the Blu-ray. But there's some behind-the-scenes photos of Garrett in the pizzeria right before William Afton comes out. And this is one of the reasons why I bought the book, was because I was hoping for deleted scenes like this. This is exactly why I bought the book, just for more. I just want more. And the Blu-ray didn't have that, because the Blu-ray sucked. Abby had started breathing again. She opened her mouth and took a gasp of air, and another, and another. Silent little breaths. The air didn't smell good at all. It smelled dirty and spoiled, like food that was too old. But Abby did her best to ignore the yucky stink. She held herself super duper still. From the clomping footsteps, Abby could tell Foxy was getting close. If they'd been playing the warmer, colder game, Foxy was getting warmer. A lot warmer. More clumps. Foxy was hot, hot, hot. Abby was sure that if Foxy looked down, he'd be staring right at where she lay, hidden by the pool of brightly colored balls. She didn't move even the tiniest muscle. So right here, this is where I left off last time, before the stream cut out. Mike walked towards his little brother. Garrett didn't move. All Garrett did was stand in the shrouded archway. He stared blankly at Mike. "Garrett?" Mike said, louder this time. "Garrett!" "He's here, Mike," Garrett said. The boy took a step backwards, then a second step. "Wait!" Mike called. Mike hurried forward as fast as his leg would let him. He crossed the few feet between him and Garrett in a little more than a couple seconds. But when Mike was almost to the archway, Garrett melted away. It was as if Garrett became part of the glooming under archway. He was there, and then he was something else. In Garrett's place, someone in a rabbit costume appeared. Not just someone, a man. Mike could tell this from the rabbit's height, and its stride, and its grandstanding swank. The rabbit strode toward Mike. Mike put on the brake and began backing up. He wanted to turn and run, but he couldn't take his eyes off the repellent rabbit. The animatronics were ragged and dirty, but they looked pristine compared to the atrocious costume. The rabbit suit looked like it had gone through an apocalypse. Tattered ears drooped over the cloudy eyes that were surrounded by smudges of black. The rabbit's yellow fur was molded with stains, some of which looked disturbingly like blood. Its fur was torn away and jagged strips revealed blackened splotches beneath. But the worst part about the rabbit was that it was striding toward Mike with a filthy toothed smile spreaded between broken whiskers that appeared to be pointing toward Mike with very ill intent. Mike immediately went for the second taser gun of Vanessa's utility belt. He aimed and fired. The charged metal prongs hit the mark. They landed right in the middle of the rabbit's chest. But the rabbit was unfazed. It kept coming. Mike attempted another shot, but it wasn't fast enough. The rabbit quickly closed the distance between them. Without breaking stride, the yellow rabbit ripped the taser probes from his chest. He reached Mike and swatted the taser from Mike's hand. The taser hit the floor with a crunch and a clittily clack. From the corner of his eye, Mike saw it spin away. Before Mike could regroup, the yellow rabbit gave him a driving shove. The rabbit's strength was almost superhuman. Mike went flying backwards. His body hit the part of the fort that he and Abby had built with Vanessa and the animatronics, which felt like it happened in another lifetime. When Mike landed, he was sure he heard a crack of bones, or maybe it was just liniment giving way. Whatever it was, it hurt. And that was just the start. As Mike crashed toward the floor, the fort above him came tumbling down. A torrent of tables dropped toward Mike like big four-legged dominoes, knocking into one another. At the same time, as if by sheer force of the rabbit's evilness, the room was plunged into near darkness, and a fantastical laser light show began. Abby looked up, sorry, pause, new part of the story. Abby looked up through the semi-transparent layer of colored balls. Long, thick stripes of light, like neon crayons, were cutting through the air over the ball pit. Abby thought the lights were pretty, and she wished she could see them better, but she didn't move. It was a good thing she didn't, because there was something else in there. Abby could see the boxy shape of Foxy's head coming down toward her. New part of the story. Groaning, Mike extricated himself from under the pile of tables. He could feel the continual warm gush of blood flowing from his leg. His calf had been bleeding since the cupcake had taken a bite of him, and he hadn't had time to do anything about it. Now, the table's impact had sped up the bleeding. Mike could feel a river of blood coursing down his leg and saturating his sock. The liquid heat wasn't confined to Mike's leg either. From the sticky, wet sensation on his chest and back, he knew his other wounds had reopened too. Mike needed to move, but he couldn't seem to get himself Goodness gracious, Emma. Oh my lord. Mike needed to move, but he couldn't seem to get himself in gear. All he could do was belly squirm across the floor. Stopping to catch his breath, Mike looked for the yellow rabbit. He had to squint to see. The consistently moving laser lights distorted everything in the room. Mike had to squint to try to separate phantom shapes from real ones. Thankfully, he didn't see the rabbit. Not thankfully, though. Mike did see movement on the stage. Or he thought he did. He turned his head and inched forward to get a better look. No, Mike thought when he saw that Freddy and Bonnie were back on their feet. Mike tried to get his own feet. Mike tried to get to his own feet, but he couldn't. His blood loss was worse than he'd thought. Because the floor felt like the deck of a ship at sea, Mike tried again to push off the floor. He began to raise his upper body, and then he stopped. He'd found the yellow rabbit. It was coming his way. Because of the distorting laser lights, the rabbit looked like it was winking in and out of existence as it approached. It was hard to focus on. However, didn't prevent Mike from noticing that the rabbit was pulling out. From where? A huge butcher's knife. Mike looked behind him. Freddy and Bonnie were still advancing toward the front of the stage. At a snail-like pace, Mike was moving. It wouldn't take the animatronics long to reach him. Mike turned front again. The rabbit was closer. Mike looked left and right. A wall on this one side, the tables on the other. He was cornered. Oh, Mr. Beast. I got a full 8 hours last night. I don't know why I'm so sleepy. Gosh. Abby was barely breathing, which was not... Restart. Abby was barely breathing, which was a good thing. Not only did it keep her quiet, but it kept her from having to inhale the scuzzy scent of the old dusty plastic balls. The cruddy, powdery surface of the balls made her... Uh-oh. Abby crinkled her nose and attempted to hold in the sneeze that tickled her nostrils, but she couldn't. Because she was trying to muffle it, Abby's sneeze came out as a hiss, but it still came out, and it was still loud enough for... Strong hands clamped onto Abby's shoulders. She felt herself being hoisted upward. Abby immediately started kicking and screaming. She tried to twist herself free, but Abby was held tight. She came up out of the ball pit and let out another sneeze. Achoo! She turned to face Vanessa. Abby stopped fighting, and Vanessa pulled Abby the rest of the way out of the pit. She helped Abby get her footing on the floor. Abby brushed herself off as she gasped for air, as she gasped at Vanessa and at Foxy. Vanessa was holding the cattle prod that Abby had last seen in Mike's hand, and Vanessa was on his back, jerking it around like it was having a fit. Dude, this is a freaking Minions movie. she was literally hiding from the robot, and she gave her away. She gave herself away because she was sneezy. She was just a little sneezy. Abby threw her arms around Vanessa's waist. Vanessa used her free hands to return the hug. Anyway, Abby pulled back. I don't know what's happening to our friends, she said. I don't know why they're trying to hurt us. Vanessa knelt down in front of Abby. Vanessa's hair was loose, and it was tangled around her face. She looked wild, but when she spoke, her voice was calm. Abby, sweetheart, they're not themselves right now. Abby nodded. She felt like she was going to cry, but she didn't. Vanessa took one of Abby's hands. Listen, Abby, there's someone here who wants to hurt us very badly. I need to get you somewhere safe, and then I need to go help your brother. I can help too. Vanessa started to shake her head, but then her gaze went to Abby's chest. Abby frowned, looking down to see what Vanessa was looking at. She didn't see anything icky on her overalls, so what was the problem? Abby lifted her gaze to Vanessa's face. Vanessa's eyes were wide, and she had that look that people got when they had an idea. What? Abby asked. The drawings, Vanessa said. Her voice was a half whisper. The drawings! Like she was amazed by something. She looked into Abby's eyes. It's the drawings! Vanessa tucked the cattle prod under her arms and grabbed Abby's shoulders. You're right, Abby, she said. You can help. Abby made a face. Huh? Vanessa started talking really fast. Your friends, they don't remember. He hurt them badly. He took their families, their love, their lives, but they don't remember. I don't understand. Vanessa let go of Abby's shoulders. She reached out and pulled Abby's drawing pad from her overall chest pocket. You know what happened to them, Vanessa said. But they don't remember. Vanessa pulled out Abby's pencils and used them to tap on the pads. So tell them. Abby looked from her pad and the pencils to Vanessa's face. What? Abby suddenly jumped back to a memory, a really recent one. She remembered seeing the spotlight drawing, the one of the yellow rabbit and the 5 kids. As her mind showed her the drawing again, she saw each of the kids in close-up. She saw big smiles drawn on their face. The memory fell away, and Abby looked at Vanessa. The picture. Vanessa nodded, smiling. Abby reached out for her pad and pencils. You're right. I have to help them remember. The yellow rabbit bore down on Mike, waving the butcher's knife in the air like it was a baton, and the rabbit was a depraved orchestral conductor. Mike couldn't stand and run. He couldn't drag himself away at the speed of light. He couldn't sink into the floor or turn invisible. All he could do was look up at the rabbit and say, "Go to hell." Thank goodness he didn't say hell, otherwise this would have been demonetized. Shoot! Oh no! Oh! Oh, it's live! Oh no! Dang it! Who the crap just entered the chat? I'm so sorry you had to hear me say the H-E-L-L hell word. I'm so sorry about that. Whoops. Ooh. The rabbit kicked Mike in the face. Mike's head recoiled, and the back of his skull hit the floor. The mother of all headaches kicked in instantaneously. Hot, thick, coppery liquid filled Mike's mouth. It started to run down his throat. He gagged and spit it out. Mike tried to get his eyes to focus, but they didn't want to cooperate. They were somewhere out in a la land of meadows filled with butterflies. That was okay. Mike wasn't going to cower like a wimp. Summoning what strength he still had, Mike turned his head to face the rabbit again. I said, Mike said clearly as he could, go to the rabbit. Kicked Mike again. This time, Mike's resolve to be hard failed him. His head bounced off the floor again, and the meadows and butterflies turned into confusion of laser lights and crooked teeth and evil eyes and an inky, churring vision of hell. Mike saw this mind-choking landscape through a vapor of gray. Even so, he was able to see the knife raised above his chest. As he fought to stay conscious and began to lose the battle, Mike heard, "That's enough!" Was that Vanessa's voice? It didn't matter. Mike agreed. He'd had enough. He stopped fighting, he closed his eyes, and let his consciousness take a break. Tucked behind a battered ball pit machine that was missing its glass, Abby sat cross-legged on the floor. She was hidden, but she could still see the dining room. She was bent over her drawing pad, her pencils scribbling as fast as she could make it move. When Vanessa shouted, though, Abby looked up. Abby had to press her lips together to stop a cry from coming out. Her brother was lying totally still on the floor. Blood was all around him. The yellow rabbit, holding a knife, stood above Mike. Vanessa was maybe 20 feet behind the rabbit, and she held a gun in both hands. The way Abby had seen it on TV. On TV, though, cops didn't shake the way Vanessa's hands were shaking. The rabbit's knife stopped in midair, but the rabbit didn't turn around. Vanessa's hands shook even harder. Abby wanted to watch what was happening over her brother, but the only way she could help him was to keep drawing. So she looked back down at her pad. As she did, nothing she saw. As she did, she thought she saw movement to the left. Abby glanced that way. Nothing. Where was Foxy? Was he still down? It didn't matter. Abby had to finish her drawing. From the dining room came the sound of a low growl from the rabbit. Abby thought, goodness gracious. From the dining room came the sound of a low growl from the rabbit, Abby thought. She caught her lower lip between the teeth and put her pencil to the page again. Drop the knife, Vanessa said. Abby started splitting her attention between the drawing and what was going on with Vanessa and the rabbit. That wasn't a hard thing to do. Abby was used to watching TV while she drew. She knew Mike thought she didn't watch the TV, but she did. Abby drew, and Abby watched the rabbit, back still to Vanessa, began to remove the rabbit costume head. Vanessa's shaking got worse. Abby could see now that the person inside the rabbit suit was a man with graying dark hair. A little old for temper tantrums, the man said. Oh, sorry. A little... that's not a good voice. Sorry. Oh, jeez Louise. I'm usually really freaking awesome at voices, but I don't know what's up this time. A little old for temper tantrums. Frick. A little old for... sorry. I'm so sorry. A little old for temper tantrums? Frick! A little old for temper tantrums? The man said. Then he turned. Aren't we, Vanessa? He said. Abby's pencil faltered. She didn't like the look of the man at all. He had a thin face and a high forehead. He also had very narrow eyes. He looked slimy. I'm not kidding, Dad. Vanessa said. Drop it. Dad, Abby thought. Poor Vanessa. It's over, Vanessa said. I have the high ground. I don't think so, sweets, the man said. You may have forgotten your loyalties, but I assure you, they have not. The man gestures towards Freddie and Bonnie, who were at the front edge of the stage. They were standing at attention. Go on, the man said to the animatronics. He pointed at Mike. Rip him into little bitty pieces. Freddie and Bonnie started across the stage, heading to its short flight of stairs. They weren't walking quite right, but they were walking well enough to get to Mike, much faster than Abby wanted them to. The man in the rabbit suit looked at Vanessa. Now why don't you put that silly thing away and help Dad clean up the mess you made? He took a step towards Vanessa. We both know you won't actually use... The sound of the shot made Abby's pencil scoot across the page in a jagged line. The point of the pencil gouged the paper. Abby ignored both the line and the hole in the paper as she kept drawing. At the same time, she saw the man kind of jump backwards. He looked down at his shoulder. Abby could see Vanessa's bullet had put a hole in the rabbit suit. And the man. The man didn't seem to be bothered by the bullet. He was angry. Abby could tell. The man snarled at Vanessa, and he put his rabbit head back on. Then he charged towards her. Abby wasn't as startled by the next 3 times the gun fired. She knew she didn't have much time yet, so she forced herself to keep drawing, even as she watched Vanessa's shots go past the rabbit. Vanessa was shaking too much to aim right, Abby thought. And that was why the man in the rabbit suit was able to reach Vanessa. He grabbed her by her throat. You had one job, the rabbit said. Keep him in the dark and kill him if he found out too much. Vanessa split in her dad's face. That's 2 jobs, she said. You can tell him, Abby thought, still drawing. Shut up, the yellow rabbit screamed. Shut up! At the same time, he shoved a big, awful knife into Vanessa's stomach. Abby felt her own stomach getting really tight, and she felt like she was going to throw up. But she didn't. She kept drawing. The yellow rabbit dug his fingers tighter around Vanessa's throat and lifted her up. Vanessa's feet flopped in the air several inches above the floor. Abby screwed up her face. Abby was so scared for Vanessa that Abby thought she could feel icky, furry rabbit fingers wrapped around her own neck. But she kept drawing. Vanessa clawed at her dad's chokehold. She tore at her dad's hand, but he didn't let go. As he fought, Vanessa looked toward Mike. Abby shot a glance at her brother, too. Her pencils made one last mark on the pad. Freddie and Bonnie had almost reached Mike. Time to go. Abby got up and ran. Vanessa was again staring into the evil rabbit's eyes. The rabbit, still choking Vanessa with one hand, was totally focused on her. He didn't see Abby at first, but Vanessa did, and she smiled. Abby ran toward the wall of pictures. Her drawing flapped like bird wings in her hand. No, the man in the rabbit suit yelled. Uh-oh, he'd seen Abby. Abby flicked a look at the rabbit, but she didn't slow down. Not even when the rabbit let go of Vanessa's neck and started toward her. Stop! Vanessa shouted. Abby knew Vanessa wasn't talking to her, but Abby's steps faltered when she saw that Vanessa had dropped her hands. Vanessa was gripping the blade of the knife, which was sticking out from her stomach. The rabbit still had one of his hands on the other end of the knife. The rabbit looked down, grunting. He tried to tug the knife out of Vanessa's belly, but Vanessa wouldn't let go. Abby could see that Vanessa was hurting bad. Vanessa's face was really white, and it was all twisted up. But she managed to say in a gasp, I won't let you hurt her too. And that's chapter 23, boys. That's chapter 23. That's chapter 23. I hope you guys are enjoying it. Who is in this chat, Raven. Who is this? Let's get a milkshake in the chat if you guys like milkshakes. Dude, I love milkshakes. All right, I'm gonna power this back on, and then we're gonna shear some sheep. Shear sheep. Just because I got sheep to shear. I don't know what else to say. I love finally vintage longs. Oh, it's so funny. Dude, I love cigarettes. I don't think there's anything that I smoke more than cigarettes. That's probably true. That's definitely true. There's nothing else in this world that I smoke more than cigarettes. Alright. Cigarette daydream, you were only 17. You can drive all night, looking for the answers in the pouring rain. If you want some peace of mind, looking for the answers. If you can find a reason to say, looking for the answers. I don't know where that's from. I put it on a playlist, and I listen to it all the time, but I do not remember who it's from. I think it's called Cigarette Daydream. But I really don't know anything else about it. All right. So, all right. Now, we are going to be, you can see my computer screen. That's crazy. All right. So, we're going to, we're going to get to chapter 24 here in a sec. First, I'm going to get some more poop in my system. I guess I don't need to do this anymore. No. Really freaking dope cup. It's so dank. Alright. Let's go ahead and hop right into this banana. And then we're going to get into chapter 24. Yeah, sorry. I'm hungry. So, let's talk about that chapter. So, there's some cool stuff happening. I really like how they didn't make the William Afton, the guy from earlier in the movie. They might do that later. But I've been thinking recently about the first movie that it may have been better if they just introduced William Afton as, instead of making him a twist villain, they just had him show up. They had him be intimidating. They had him being freaking evil. I don't know. The climax of this movie, if they got like the ending of the movie right, I think it would have been really good. Unfortunately, I think it's fine. I don't think it's as good as it could have been. So the only problems I have with it is just that I really wish they either went for No, I wish they went for more of a like William Afton is commanding the animatronics to do this stuff because he wants to kill Abby. I wish I I don't know. I think they should have made it to where William hired Mike specifically so like he could lure in Abby with the animatronics, then he could kill her. I think the whole thing with them wanting to turn Abby into an animatronic is stupid. I think that's a fine idea, but I think that would have been better if that was William. Mr. Beast that was trying to do that. I don't know. It's just a little cluttered. Um yeah. So let's hop to chapter 24. This should be like the big main ending with the spring lock and everything. I'm very interested to see how they'll describe the like I know they described the spring locks earlier, but I wonder how they're going to describe like the actual act of someone getting spring locked in this book. Actually, I'm gonna turn this back on because like all the sheep grew their wool back. Okay, so there's not a lot of people here. I'm gonna give my I'm gonna give like my top 5 problems with the with the FNAF 2 movie, and then I'm gonna give my like top 5 things I really liked about the movie. And I'm gonna try to actually make it like genuine, like things that I liked about the movie instead of something lame like oh I really like how the animatronics uh weren't CGI. No, we're not doing that. That's just stupid. Um, so the top 5 things I didn't like about the movie, I didn't appreciate. Number 5 was Toy Freddy. I think he has such a good voice in Ultimate Custom Night. Um, and I'm sorry, I love the guy that plays him. He played Glamrock Freddy, but I don't know. Toy Freddy is not like intimidating. Um, Number 2, or number 4, I really hated how freaking stupid all the adults in the movie were. Like a lot of people are like, "Oh my gosh, they're unnecessarily cruel." Which like I get that for someone like the teacher that Abby has, but he's such a evil person in such a funny way that I really don't mind that. But I'm talking more about more the start of the movie, um, where Abby is just or not Abby, where freaking Charlie is going up to all these parents and she's screaming bloody murder to all of them. She's like, "Hey, this kid is being kidnapped." She goes up to like 5 parents and all of them are like, "Shoo, peasants, get out of my sight. I know I do not like children. Get out of here." Um I think that was so lame, and that goes into my like number one main point of the movie that I really don't like. So yeah, that's number 4. Number 5, number like 3. Um, I didn't like I really didn't like the animatronics coming back at the end. I thought that was really, really. I thought that was really stupid. I I I hated that because the entire movie they're building up to the animatronics being the withered animatronics. Like they mentioned how broken apart they are multiple times in the movie. And so the whole time you're like, okay, they're going to be the withered animatronics, right? And then no, they show up and they're like in better condition than they were in the first movie. I like that they absolutely wrecked the toy animatronics. I did like that. I thought it would have been better if they were just the freaking wizards. I don't know why they did that. The only reason I can think why they did that is because like Scott didn't want to confirm that the wizards and the OG animatronics were the same robots. Which is stupid. It's a different continuity. I don't understand. I absolutely, the bane of my existence is all of these freaking FNAF videos that are like, did the FNAF movie just solve this problem in the games? And it's like, no, it shouldn't have. This needs to be a different continuity. If we are so, Scott Cawthon put it extremely well. He put it extremely well when he said sometimes lore gets so convoluted that you have no room for a story. And that's freaking exactly what's happening with the FNAF community right now. Because they're so obsessed with what the movies mean for the games that none of them are facing the fact that it's a different universe and it should be taken as a different universe. And if we treat it as anything else, Scott Cawthon is going to write the movies worse than he already has. Okay, sorry about that. Number 2, I don't know. I should have made the Wizards number 2. Now that I think about it. Oh no. I know what number 2 is. This is if number 1 wasn't so bad, number 2 would be number 1. They're like neck and neck because I hate this so much. The kids move on at the end of the movie. At the end of the second movie, the kids move on. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. No, I don't think so. I don't think that makes too much sense. Why do they move on? Do they move on for any character reason? I mean, they're in the games, they move on because William Afton is finally dead. Or Happiest Day happens, whichever you think. If you think Happiest Day and Pizzeria Sim are the same thing. No, that's not why they move on in the movie. They move on because they defeated the puppet, which has the original animatronics from the first movie and Charlie from the second movie are so freaking disconnected from each other that it's like actually insane. I don't understand how these are connected at all to where the FNAF 1 animatronics defeating the puppet in this movie have anything to freaking do with each other that allows the spirits to move on. Which, a freaking bonus round, honorable mention, Golden Freddy is not in this movie. I don't know how in the world they got away with making a FNAF 2 movie without putting Shadow Freddy or Golden Freddy in the movie. I really don't understand it. The kid for Golden Freddy shows up, and he's supposed to be like the vengeful spirit, right? So he's keeping William alive and torturing him in the FNAF 1 pizzeria, which is what the end of this movie, like, confirms. But at the end of the movie, he's like, yeah, we gotta move on, BT dubs. I'm leaving William out to kill even more kids now. JK lol. Like, that is so anti-vengeful spirit. Oh my gosh! And then, the last thing in the movie that will probably cause me to have a stroke is, Charlie. Charlie sucks in this movie. I don't understand how anyone is okay with this movie because like actually assassinated Charlie's character in this movie. So in the games, there's the vengeful spirit and Charlie. The vengeful spirit is vengeful. You know, she hates or if you're one of those freaking Andrew germaphobes that think Andrew's the vengeful spirit, but Cassidy, who I think the vengeful spirit is vengeful. You know, she's the reason William is stuck in UCN. And, you know, that's her whole thing, is that she's vengeful. And then for the puppet, the entire point of her is that she's lifting up the children in her arms. She's a protector. She is not the villain of an entire movie, at least not in this movie. She shouldn't have had the motivation to kill all adults because she was wronged by adults before. I'm gonna backtrack. I do think she would work as a villain in a movie, but her motivation is absolutely anti-Charlie that it makes me want to throw up. So in the movie, she screams bloody murder to all these adults, like I mentioned earlier. They don't do anything, and so now her it's so stupid. Now her, like, motive for going out and killing a bunch of people is just that she hates parents and she wants to kill a bunch of parents, which is so lame, and that's such an awful way to simplify Charlie's character. I think you could have had a good motivation for it if you just, like, tweaked it a little bit, like made it to where Charlie doesn't think kids are safe with adults, and so she wants to go out and kill a bunch of adults. I think that would have been really fine because she saw a boy get grabbed into a room with an adult who was about to kill him, and that's how she died. I think that would have been a much better motivation for it. So that way that keeps and retains the protector aspect of her character, and it makes her cause a lot more understandable than just, man, I freaking hate my mom and dad, I wish they would disappear. That's so stupid. I can't believe they allowed 4 monkeys in a room to write this movie. It's actually insane. AI has come so far. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. And I'm not done! Oh my gosh! The second piece of this insanity puzzle is that Charlie has a new superpower. New superpower unlocked. She can possess people now, which is freaking, oh, that's freaking epic. Let's go! Except it's awful because Scott Cawthon and the people who wrote this movie are absolute cowards. They made a robot for the puppet, and instead of utilizing this animatronic by the Jim Henson Company, instead they freaking have Charlie use a new superpower to possess people and then use them as puppets, which is like, funny, that's her name, whatever. I don't care. She does it 3 times in the movie, and the 3rd time is absolutely hilarious, and I'm so excited for the new movie because it's gonna be so bad. Sorry, I'm a little out of breath. But I'm this point is coming from an earnest and honest disappointment in the movie. So in the trailer, there was a shot of Vanessa, and above her were these hands that came out and grabbed a ledge. When I saw that trailer, I got so hyped because that shot was awesome. And then when you saw the full shot in the movie, it was bad. It was just like the hands came up, and then out from the corner appeared frickin' the blonde girl from Forgetting You with tear tracks and bad makeup on her face. It's just cowardly. I like her voice and everything. I think when it's Abby that's doing the puppet voice, it's uncanny. Like, she sounds exactly the way the puppet sounds in UCN. It's like, exactly. It's so cool. I love how much of a fan Abby is of these games, but holy moly, I feel like that love isn't really shown around. Anyway, now that I talked about all the things I didn't like, I want to talk about the stuff that I did like. Yay. So, number 5 thing I liked the most was let's see. I liked Chica in the movie. A lot of people think it's weird that she was um pretty much the main character, but out of anyone, she's definitely like the most like distinguished out of all of them. I don't know. She's like the most recognizable character from the movie. Um and number 4, I was just thinking about a bunch of stuff. Oh yeah, I don't number 4, I don't mind Michael Afton being in the movie. A lot of people don't like it. I think it's fine. I think the movie's so crazy that it just fits. It just fits that he just shows up at the end of the movie. I have my own theories for who he is. I think it would be absolutely crazy if William didn't actually kill Garrett and he just freaking stole him and made him his son. That would be a good reason why he isn't blonde like his sister. That would be really cool. I wish they Lance, I'm freaking having a stroke right now. I think it would have been better, and this is kind of something I don't like about the movie, if they made him Fritz Smith or Jeremy Fitzgerald as like an alias, but at the start of the movie he's like, "My name's Mike." And it's like, okay, whatever. I think it would have been cool if they had I'm sorry. This is supposed to be the positives, but I'm going to talk about negatives. I don't like how the movie isn't a FNAF 2 movie. Like, it isn't. The first movie was, while yeah, it did have elements from the rest of the series, it definitely was a FNAF 1 movie. Like, Mike Schmidt was the main character. When his name was Mike earlier in the movie, everyone was like, Michael Afton, 100%. And then they said Schmidt, and that was such a pleasant surprise for me, because, you know, it's a FNAF 1 movie, and I kind of wanted this movie to have that. So I was disappointed that Shadow Freddy wasn't in it. I was disappointed Golden Freddy wasn't in it. I was disappointed Fritz Smith and Jeremy Fitzgerald weren't in it. Noah's calling me. Sorry, Noah, I am doing this real quick. I will call you right back. Okay. You know, I was disappointed by all of that. But I think Michael Afton is so evil in this movie, and he has such a creepy face that he fits so well. Next thing I liked was I really liked the news cutouts at the beginning of the movie. I thought that was so cool, and I wish they had something similar to that earlier in the last movie. But the 8-bit stuff, it kind of feels like they should have been flipped, because the news like papers were definitely more the first game, and the mini games were definitely more the second game. Yeah. Third thing was what else did I like? I think Vanessa was very good in this movie. A lot of people don't like her in this movie. I thought she was very good. She had an arc of her still being scared of her father. And I think the fact that she got a comeuppance at the end for being so secretive to all the other characters was awesome. I think that was really good. And well done. Good job, guys. Number 2. Oh no. Mangle was crazy. Like that scene of Mangle attacking her on the car was cool. And then finally, of course, the best part of the movie was just the scene of Michael playing Five Nights at Freddy's 2. That was the best part of the movie. That was awesome. So, I don't hate the movie. I kind of hate the movie, but I do hate the movie. I don't hate it too much. I like a lot of aspects. I don't like a lot of aspects. But overall, I think the movie's there's room for improvement. I'm hoping the third movie will be the last. I just love when something's done. I really like when something's done well. So I hope they finish strong. Don't know what they're gonna do with Baby in the new movie. That's gonna be so strange. So help me if Vanessa's a robot, I will die. I will actually die. I'll just pass away in the movie theater. All right. I gotta call my friend back. I'm gonna take a break real quick, and then we're gonna head into chapter 24. Sorry if it sounds like I'm stalling. That's because I am. So I'll be right back. Hey, do you need something?
I'm on my break at work. What are you doing? Are you in class?
I'm live streaming.
Oh, my bad. Go back. I'll watch it.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, guys, look at this. How did I miss the banana peel? How did I miss that? What the crap? I keep missing it. It's so stupid. All right, I gotta go to the bathroom. Sorry. All right, guys, chapter 24. Ah, I just got banana peeled. I just got banana peeled. Shut up. All right. Let's shear some sheep. Minecraft moment. All right. If it seems like I'm stalling right now, it's because I am. Elijah Carter is on a plane right now, and he said the flight's 2 hours, and so I want the stream to at least be a couple hours long, so that way he can see a little bit because he's been watching since since I started it. Yeah, it's pretty good. Okay. All right. Let's get some skibbity toilet. All right. Chapter 24. Yes.
Dude.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm calling you while watching your live stream. Your number totally got leaked.
No, it didn't.
Dude, all your fans have your number now.
No, that's not true.
They all have it.
Are you serious?
When you slipped on the banana peel, you had it written on your arm, and everyone saw it.
No! No! Oh, I can see. I'm getting a bunch of calls, guys. No!
I'm sorry.
Dude, my Fortnite account got hacked.
I'm sorry, I have to go.
My V-Bucks are gone. They took them all. Lance, no! It's gone. I lost it all. So happy I have my vintage long cigarettes. Okay, guys. Let's finish this. Oh, man. Alright. As much as she hated what happened to Vanessa and wanted to run at the rabbit and beat him up with her fists, Abby knew she couldn't help that way. The only thing she could do was what she was doing. She had to keep going toward the wall. So she didn't let her pace slow even as she watched Vanessa struggle with her dad. Abby finally reached the wall. She quickly looked over her shoulder, just in time to see Vanessa press toward the rabbit. Vanessa wrapped her dad in a big, hard bear hug. Oh no, Abby thought. She understood that Vanessa was trying to save Abby, but by hugging the man like that, Vanessa had to have driven the knife much further into her body. That's a knife moment. All right. I'm not doing the Twilight series. Sorry, fam. All right. Abby started to cry just as the yellow bunny roared. She watched the rabbit beat at Vanessa's back, trying to get free. Vanessa, however, didn't let go. Abby had to make Vanessa's sacrifice worth it. Turning to the wall of children's drawings, Abby quickly found the drawing of the yellow rabbit with the 5 kids. She reached for it. Glancing back, Abby saw that Vanessa was looking directly at Abby. Vanessa's eyes looked weird, like they were lights that were having a hard time staying on. Even so, Vanessa held Abby's gaze, and the rabbit continued to fight to get free. Abby got her hand on the drawing of the rabbit and the 5 kids. She crumpled the paper in her grip, and she whipped her hand away from the wall. When the drawing let go of it, when the drawing let go of the wall, it tore. The sound of the long, crackling rip was much louder than the normal sound of paper tearing. As soon as the sound ended, Abby saw Vanessa's arm start to drop away from her dad. I'm sorry, Dad, she said. Her voice was so weak that Abby barely heard it. Get off me, the man in the rabbit suit shrieked. The rabbit flung Vanessa aside, and he turned to look toward Abby. He let out a booming sound that made Abby think of a really angry dog. That rage, Abby knew, was directed at her. And the rabbit was now coming toward her, too. Slap, thud, slap, thud, slap, thud. The sound of the rabbit's footsteps filled the room. He was charging toward Abby. Abby quickly turned and pressed her new drawing to the wall, in the space where the old drawing had been. But the drawing had been stuck to the wall by tape, and the tape had come away with the drawing. Abby had no other way to attach her drawing to the wall. Abby looked at the wall, hoping to find a free piece of tape, but all the tape holding the drawing was old. She knew none of it would work. The rabbit's footsteps were really close. Abby didn't turn to look, but she knew the rabbit was almost. I know, Abby thought. Abby kept holding the drawing in place with one palm, and with the other palm she dug in her overall pockets. She pulled out one of her colored pencils and swung her arm in a wide arc through the air. Abby rammed the pencil through the drawing, jamming the pencil into the wall. Abby hadn't been sure it would work, because the wall wasn't soft like the bulletin board. But when she let go of the pencil, the drawing stayed in place, and every light in the dining room went out. Abby hardly dared to breathe, much less move. But she had to see what was happening. Abby turned away from the wall. Even though the dining room lights were dark, the fluorescent lights in the lobby were still on. They were weak, so they couldn't toss brightness very far. But what bit reached the wall of pictures and the rest of the room was enough for Abby to see that no one was moving. The yellow rabbit was just a couple feet from Abby, but he stopped dead. So were Freddie and Bonnie, who were standing there, over Mike. Vanessa was on the floor, lying very, very still. Abby wanted to run to Vanessa and Mike, but she stayed where she was. Freddie and Bonnie turned their head. They looked toward the yellow rabbit. Then they started moving toward the yellow rabbit. Their steps slow and unsteady. The yellow rabbit's awful eyes locked on Abby. "What have you done?" he growled. Abby was still scared, but she put her shoulders back up and said, "They can see you now." Abby stood a step to the side. Suddenly, one of the stage spotlights came on. It landed right on Abby's new drawing. Abby looked at her work. Even as panicked as she had been, she'd drawn, even as worried for her brother and Vanessa, even as grossed out as she was by the yellow rabbit, Abby had done probably the best drawing she'd ever done in her life. Or it could have just felt that way. Maybe the colors weren't perfect, and maybe some of the things in the drawings were a little shaky looking, but the message of the drawing was perfectly clear. Abby had drawn the yellow rabbit holding a bloody knife, standing over the dead bodies of 5 little kids. Abby glanced at the yellow rabbit. She couldn't see the man's face behind the costume rabbit head, but she could tell the man didn't like the drawing. The yellow rabbit's grimace looked even meaner than it had before. Sorry, I gotta fix something real quick. It's been bothering me. Sorry. This will just take a second. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. Abby glanced at the yellow rabbit. She couldn't see the face behind the costume head, but she could tell the man didn't like the drawing. The yellow rabbit's grimace looked even meaner than it had before. The yellow rabbit took a step toward Abby. She shrank back toward the wall. A whisper of movement, a thud. Foxy stepped out of the shadows beyond the spotlight. He put himself between Abby and the yellow rabbit. Abby's heart began to pound hard in her chest, but then Foxy turned toward the rabbit. "Move!" the rabbit said to Foxy. Foxy didn't budge. "I said move!" the yellow rabbit shouted. A loud click answered the rabbit's bellow. A second spotlight burst on. It caught the yellow rabbit in a circle of white light, so powerful that Abby couldn't look directly at it. Neither could the yellow rabbit. He threw up a hand to shield his eyes. The yellow rabbit turned away from the light, and when he did, Freddie, Bonnie, and Chica were there, almost by magic. Abby thought, but not really. They'd been moving in the darkness when Abby and the rabbit had been distracted by the spotlights. The yellow rabbit was no longer looking at Abby. He was staring at the animatronics, and the animatronics didn't seem to care about Abby either. Now she could move. Abby sidestepped along the wall. No one looked at her. That gave her courage. Keeping her step as light as possible, Abby hurried over to Mike. She dropped to her knees next to him. "Mike," Abby whispered. "Mike, wake up." The little hairs of Mike's eyelashes rippled against his skin, but he didn't open his eyes. Abby leaned over and put a hand on his shoulder. She shook him really hard. "Mike!" she hissed loudly in his ear. Mike opened his eyes. He blinked several times. And then he seemed to zero in on Abby's face. "Abby!" Abby nodded, but tensed when she heard a scrape and a thud. She turned away from Mike. It was okay. She and Mike were okay. The animatronics were closer to the yellow rabbit now. They completely surrounded him. "Mr. Beast! Mr. Beast, give me some poop!" They completely surrounded him, creating a circle that was about 2 feet from him. And they were pressing in even closer. "Look at you!" the yellow rabbit said. The voice was filled with disgust. He sounded the same way bullies sound. "Look at what nasty things you've become. Look at how small you are." The animatronics stopped moving. Abby bit her lip. they weren't going to listen to the Yellow Rabbit, were they? The Yellow Rabbit took advantage of the animatronic's hesitation. "Wretched or rotten little beasts," he said, his voice even crueler than before. "Look how pathetic you are." The animatronics looked at each other in turn. "Look at how worthless you are." The Yellow Rabbit locked in on Chica, who stood before him with the cupcake platter raised. Her cupcake was back in place on the platter, poised but still. The Yellow Rabbit took a step toward Chica. He pointed at Chica and then pointed toward Mike and Abby. "Now get over there," he commanded, "and rip them apart before I rip all of you apart." Abby held her breath. What would the animatronics do? Abby got her answer in an instant. The cupcake sprang off its platter. It flew directly at the Yellow Rabbit's chest, and it sunk its big white teeth into the holy fake fur that stretched over the rabbit's heart. The Yellow Rabbit screamed. He batted at the cupcake, but it hung on. He started twisting around and jumping this way and that, as if he was on fire. He was jerking around so violently that his costume head came off. Abby watched as the Yellow Rabbit's head shot through the air. The head hit the wall of drawings, then bounced to the floor and rolled over and over twice. Then it lay still. The rabbit ears drooped downward, the toothy mouth gaped open. Abby returned her attention to the man in the rest of the rabbit suit. He had collapsed to the floor. Kneeling, he grabbed the cupcake in both hands. He worked the cupcake back and forth. Finally, he ripped the cupcake away from his chest. When the cupcake was plucked loose, it didn't open its mouth. It hung on. So a big wide section of silky yellow rabbit fur went with it. The gape in the rabbit costume made it possible to see the inner working of the costume. Abby made a face and hugged herself when she saw what was under the fake fur. She'd seen something like it before. It made her insides get all knotted up. The Yellow Rabbit costume had the same thing in it that the little red-headed girl animatronic had. The one Chica had tried to put Abby into. The suit was lined with row after row of super sharp metal things. Now that Abby could see them more clearly than she had when she was fighting Chica, she decided the metal things looked like a bunch of crab claws. The claws were closed up tight, curled inward toward the side of the suit. But if the claws opened, as Abby stared at the metal things, she heard a snap like a lock shooting back. One of the crab claws opened, then another, and another. Abby saw blood starting to run into the metal. Then the blood stained the edges of the surrounding rabbit fur. Abby looked at the face of the man in the suit. His teeth were gritted. His eyes were wide. Abby thought of Vanessa, who was still sprawled on the floor. Vanessa might even be dead. The horrible man in the suit deserved what was happening to him. Abby stopped feeling sorry. She even liked it when she heard another snap and knew the man was being hurt even worse. Jeez Louise, Abby. It felt like 100 mini drills were attempting to burrow into Mike's head and into the rest of his body, too. He couldn't see quite right, and his body felt as floppy and useless as a fish snatched out of water. Mike was starting to get his bearings, though. He knew where he was, in Freddy's dining room. He knew Abby was with him, and she was, as far as he could tell, okay. He also knew that the man who had tried to kill him was getting his comeuppance. Comeuppance is such a funny, silly word. What a good word. That's awesome. Bro, I love cigarettes. They're actually awesome. Mike recognized the snapping sounds he was hearing. He knew what was happening to the man. He was being skewered from the inside of his costume. Good. What were those things in the suit? Abby asked. They're like the ones in the girl suit that Chica tried to put me in. Mike felt like a donkey was kicking him in the chest. The idea of Abby... They're spring locks, Mike said. The man in the rabbit suit. It was him, Steve Raglan, the career counselor who had hired Mike and whose voice had echoing in Mike's skull for so long. Mike didn't know it, but Raglan wasn't his real name. His real name was William Afton. No, his real name was Afton, William Afton. And fate had somehow brought them together once again. Afton looked over at Mike and Abby. Even though the guy was clearly incapacitated, Mike reached for Abby, wanting to protect her. Mike didn't have to worry, though. Afton was just putting on a show of defiance. Afton's face was misshapen with pain, and his body was being jolted savagely by what was happening inside the rabbit suit. Still, through the continuous chain of reaction of springlocks, Afton was able to scoot over the floor. He dragged himself forward until he reached for the costume's head. More snaps. Afton put the yellow rabbit head back on. His motions unsteady and weak, the yellow rabbit managed to right himself. He faced the animatronics who stood shoulder to shoulder watching the rabbit. "I killed you once," Afton said, his voice strained but strong inside the rabbit head. "I can do it again." The yellow rabbit took a step toward the animatronic. Mike heard a series of sharp sounds like a chattering of metal teeth. Clank, clack, clack. The remaining spring locks were disengaged, and even Afton, seemingly impervious to destruction, couldn't withstand it. The yellow rabbit's body contorted, hunching inward. Afton howled like a tortured animal. His yowls winged through the building like a flurry of bats wheeling through a subterranean chamber. As if channeling the rabbit's torment, the pizzeria began to agitate. The building felt like it was whipping back and forth on its footing. At the same time, the spotlights began to switch on and off. The laser lights starting up. They went out. They started up again. A muddled patchwork of rock song snippets intertwined with bursts of static coming from the intercom speakers. Sensation overload. Chaos. The building was now rattling at its very core. The remaining of Abby's forts were stuttering across the dining room floor. Overhead, lights were swaying, and one bank of fluorescent lights came crashing down. The lights, metal framework, just a couple feet from Abby, way too close for comfort. Mike forced his body into gear. They had to move. "Come on," Mike shouted, rejecting his body's weakness. Mike levered himself up from the ground. He had to lean a little on Abby to get himself in motion, but once he took a step, he got some momentum going. He started forward, aiming toward the lobby, in a limping run, keeping a tight grip on Abby's hand. But Abby resisted his attempt to urge her forward. "Wait!" she cried. "We have to get Vanessa." "Vanessa? She's here?" Mike frowned and looked around. Why was Vanessa here? She'd been adamant that... "She saved me," Abby shouted. Now she was tugging on Mike. "Come on!" Mike let Abby lead him, not toward the lobby, but farther into the middle of the dining room. As soon as they'd taken a couple steps, Mike spotted Vanessa. His feet faltered, and his breathing hitched. Vanessa was prone on the floor, not moving. A pool of blood that was far too large to make Mike optimistic about her survival extended in all directions around her. She might already be gone, Mike thought. Hindered now by not just one of his injuries, but a choking grief, Mike was barely able to make it the rest of the way to where Vanessa lay. But he got there. When he did, he painstakingly lowered himself to one knee, which he planted in the thick, sticky red spill that surrounded Vanessa. As Mike put 2 fingers against Vanessa's neck, and to his relief, felt a faint pulse, he saw movement on the other side of the room. Even over the continued mishmash of music and static, he heard the clod, clod, clod of animatronic footsteps. His muscles tensed, and he lifted his gaze. Mike had been sure the animatronics were coming for him and Abby, but they weren't. They clearly could not have cared less about Mike and his sister. They were otherwise occupied. Mike watched as Foxy used his hook to drag the yellow rabbit along behind him. The other 3 animatronics followed Foxy and the rabbit into the back hallway. Mike! Abby said. She shook his arm. I don't think he's doing good. Or I don't think she's doing good. Mike whipped his gaze back to Vanessa. Abby was right. Vanessa was alive, but barely. Come on, he said. Help me. Neither Mike nor Abby should have been strong enough to lift an unconscious woman, but they did anyway. They managed to brace her between them as they both got back to their feet. Then each of them hooked one of Vanessa's limp arms around their necks. Holding tight to Vanessa's arms, they managed to start dragging her across the dining room. Mike glanced towards the back hallway as they went, but saw nothing but a pipeline of black. The animatronics and the yellow rabbit were no longer within view. The discordant chords and snatches of lyrics that spilled from the speakers were louder now. Oh, man. The lights were playing. Now you see me, now you don't. Even faster than before. The floor began to move under Mike and Abby's feet. It felt like the building was beginning to sway. Mike heard a teeny zing above his head, and he looked up. He saw the brackets holding two sets of spotlights to the ceiling rend loose. The spotlights came crashing down. They landed just a foot to Mike's right. Without a word, Mike and Abby picked up the pace. They were both grunting with effort, both panting. Mike's face was hot, and he kept having to blink sweat from his eyes. On the heels of falling spotlights, whole banks of fluorescent lights began exploding. Shaboom! A glass monsoon poured over the room. Look out, Abby. Wait, what? No, look down, Abby, Mike yelled. He followed his own advice, which kept glass from getting in his eyes. But he felt barb-sized shards poking at his scalp as the glass showered onto his head. Just a few steps. Just a few more steps, Mike told himself. He strained to keep hold of Vanessa's arm. Her skin was slick with blood. So were his hands. Mike glanced at Abby, worried that she wouldn't have the strength to keep going. But Abby was a trooper. Her lips were set, and she was frowning ferociously. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, 6, 7. They made it to the lobby, just as guttural, hellish moans curled up from what felt like the most hidden recesses of the building. The sound reached for them like a killer's hand. Mike shot a look over his shoulder. He nearly let go of Vanessa when he saw a wraith-like build of smoke closing in on the lobby. The smoke was coming fast, too fast. It's going to overtake us, Mike thought. It would ka-chink. Mike pulled his gaze from the smoke monster and saw Abby had released the front door handle. She was leaning into the door, pushing it outward. Mike tried to move forward and he tripped. He hit his head. He hit the door and he saw black. Whoa. Okay, so the okay. So chapter 25 starts with something interesting. I wonder if it is what I think it's going to be. But we'll see. All right. Oh, I'm sleepy. I'm so sleepy. Cigarettes. Okay, I may need to put put all these in a shulker box. Here we go. Dude, the camera's in the way. Oh, this is why they have shulker boxes here. Okay, cool. So yeah, a lot of light blue wool. Okay. All right. I have some white wool I need to get as well. Who's in here? Someone just joined. All right, so we are going to hop back into the book. This is the last chapter. You know, it's mm. Actually tastes pretty good, guys. Yummy. I eat these. These. All right. All right. Chapter 25. Okay. Let's freaking wholesome this chungus. Ooh, it's a bit of a reader. Oh no, it's not too bad. So, recap of the last section. They freaking gave William Afton Obamacare, and then he fell down, and now the building fell down. And then Mike fell down, and Vanessa fell down. Ashes, they all fell down. And then Mike fell down. Guys, check this out. This is actually really cool. Why is it so big? This is your prize for watching all of this. Congratulations. You guys got a pot of gold. And an Amazon gift card. Congratulations, guys, for going through this series with me. Before we get to the last chapter, I just want to give you an Amazon gift card and a big old pot of gold. And okay, maybe not Mr. Beast. Maybe not Jimmy. Maybe not Jimmy. What else is there? Oh, this picture's awesome. Okay, I give it for going through this series with me. I give you a cat meme, and a pot of gold. I'm gonna put the cat mean in the pot of gold. It'll be so cute. It'll be so chungus. Oh, I have an idea. Hold on. I'm gonna put the pot of gold in, and then I'm gonna put the gift card. Gift card. I'm gonna put the gift card in the pot of gold, and it's like a little present. Congratulations, guys, for doing this. You get a gift card and a little cat meme. Thank you guys so much for sticking with this. I really appreciate it. All right, let's finish this thing. Mike had never heard birds sing so loudly. Shielding his eyes against the sun that was playing hide and seek in a cloud-filled sky, Mike looked up at the trees that encircled the clean white lines of the Child Development Center. Okay, never mind. I thought he was going to go back into the sleep land, like one last time. I think that would have been kind of cool. I guess not. The massive oaks and pines appeared as if they were standing guard over the buildings and its precious occupants. The birds, Mike could hear, were hopping from branch to branch in the trees. Mike realized he'd never really... I gotta find my light. Where is it? Where's my light at? There we go. Mike realized he'd never really paid a lot of attention to birds in his real life. He'd heard the ones in his dreams every night, but had he ever listened to their songs during the day? Not really. Well, he was going to start now. I'm going to start doing a lot of things, he decided, but right now, he needed to pick up his sister. It took Mike a few minutes to get into the building and make it down the long hall to the activity center. He was still limping, mostly a limp that was caused by the healing gouge in his calf, but he had a couple hairline cracks in his bones too. In his tibia and fibula. Those are made up words, that's not real. Don't let yourselves get friggin' tricked by these Fnaf books, kids. Fibula is not a real word. Not big enough for casts, his doctors had told him. They'd heal on their own. The rest of Mike's injuries were healing too. He'd needed a lot of stitches, and for a couple weeks, he looked like he'd had himself inked with splotches of black and blue and purple. Purple moment! Purple alert! Purple mattress. Boys, purple mattress. Purple mattress. Purple can help me catch some Z's. His stitch, but 3 weeks out, the bruises had almost faded. His stitches were gone. He was on the mend. The sound of laughter hurried Mike along. He looked ahead and saw Dr. Lillian standing in front of the activity center window. They exchanged a wave, and Mike was at her side a few seconds later. Mike grinned. He did the Roblox Reddit grin at Dr. Lillian and looked through the window inside the colorful play space. A group of 6 kids were in the midst of a rowdy game of tag. And, to Mike's total joy, Abby was one of the kids. His sister, wearing her favorite red overalls, was bobbing and weaving to avoid getting caught. She had some mad moves. Running from animatronics and serial killer rabbits had honed her escape skills, and thankfully, it didn't seem to have dampened her spirit at all. Just the opposite. Right now, as she did an impressive drop and roll that got her out of range of a little boy with a flat-top buzz cut, Abby grinned bigger and wider than she ever has. Abby shot to see her feet and limped. Gosh, jeez, I can't read. Abby shot to her feet and leaped away from a little red-headed girl. She spotted her brother and gave him a brief wave. Then she was off again, sprinting to the far side of the room. It's really extraordinary, Dr. Lillian said. The turn she's taken the past few weeks. She seems almost happy. Mike turned to look at Dr. Lillian. The doctor tucked a lock of white hair between her ear as she nodded. Then she glanced down at the leg he favored. One of these days, she said, you'll have to tell me what happened. She pointed at the leg. And how you got that limp. Mike burped, but he didn't agree to spill the beans. Mike and the doctor watched Abby in silence for a few seconds. Then Dr. Lillian asked casually, and still no word from Jane? Mike shook his head. He'd been ready for this question, and he answered it just as casually as Dr. Lillian had asked it. You know, he said, I think my aunt has finally decided to move on. I mean, she kind of did, Mike thought. So, okay, is this decanonized? Does this mean she's dead? In the books? Does this mean she's dead? Oh my gosh. Because in the movies, they committed her to an insane asylum, which is funny. I think that's fine. I think that's a good way of doing it. I wonder if this is not canon because she's dead. Mike flipped on his car's turn signal. The creaky click-click led into the sound of his squeaky brakes as he maneuvered the old jalopy around the corner. A belch of exhaust wafted in through Mike's open window. He gave the dashboard in front of his steering wheel a pat. The car's idiosyncrasy had started to amuse him more than annoy him. Mike looked over at Abby, who had her feet pressed against the glove box. Her sketch pad was propped on her knees. She was drawing something Mike couldn't see. It's really not that hard, Mike said. Abby said nothing. I asked you a very simple question. Mike pushed. To which there's a very simple answer. Pizza or spaghetti? Abby held up her drawing pad. Mike flicked a look at it. She'd drawn a platter of pizza and spaghetti. I told you I want both, she said. Mike said. I guess we're at an impasse. Abby gave Mike a pretend glare. Then she half grinned and applied a colored pencil to her drawing. She made a sweeping motion with the pencil, and she raised the pad for him to see. Mike glanced over at the pad. Abby had circled the spaghetti. Mike returned his attention to the road. Done, he said. Abby smiled. She flipped the page on her drawing pad. Mind if we stop first? Mike asked. Nope, Abby said, concentrating on her drawing. Mike lowered himself into the high-backed tan vinyl chair that was pulled up next to the safety-railed hospital bed. He breathed shallowly because he hated the soup of odors in the ICU. Bleach and medicines and rubbing and urine and hospital foods. Why did all hospital foods smell like overcooked green beans? The ICU beds were all occupied, so the U-shaped cluster of the glass-fronted enclosure was filled with sounds. Mike could hear the rhythmic pumping of ventilators, the beep of monitors, the scrape of equipment being moved, the snuff-snuff of soft, solid nursing shoes, and the continual murmuring of voices. Some soft and some loud. Vanessa's critical care cubicle was on the outside of the area, so the sun, still covered with puffy white clouds, put a soft hand of warmth over Vanessa's cheek. If only Vanessa could feel it. Or maybe she could. One of the nurses had told Mike that even when patients were in a coma, they were sometimes aware of what was going on around him. You can talk to her, the ponytail nurse had told Mike. He leaned forward and looked at Vanessa's pale eyelids. Other than the top of her cheeks, this was all that he could see of Vanessa's face. The rest of it was obscured by ventilators that was keeping her alive while her body recovered from its massive blood loss. Surgeons had repaired her wounds, but her own system had done the rest. Had to do the rest. So the big news is, Mike said, I finally got a new job. Not as exciting as the last one, but I'm thinking that's probably a good thing. Mike chuckled briefly. But the sound of his amusement didn't fit with the other noise of the ICU. Mike went silent. He was lying about the job. Why? I almost got excited for a second because that was something I didn't like about the new movie, that they just didn't explain how he got the job. He didn't get a job. In truth, he was very excited about his apprentice level position with a construction firm that he was building a big complex at the edge of town. A complex? Ooh, a pizza complex? Maybe. The foreman, who said he had a past of his own, didn't have a problem with taking a chance on Mike. He even told Mike that he could use company tools and scrap wood to work on his own project after hours. Mike thought he might make himself some bedroom furniture. Maybe Mike would tell Vanessa about his new job another day. For now, he said, look, I know we have a lot to talk about. There are some big things I still need you to explain, but I've made peace with a lot of what happened, and I know that. Certain decisions you made, well, you weren't in control of them, and I know that when it mattered the most, you were there for me and Abby. Mike thought about Vanessa's description of all that had happened to Vanessa when he'd been out of it. He immediately shut his mind down. He didn't need to linger on the ugliness. I don't think either of us would be here today without you, Mike told Vanessa. Mike reached out and took the limp, soft hand that lay on top of a thin white hospital blanket. At the simple touch, a current of emotion rushed through him. So many feelings. Which was the most dominant? Sadness, anger, regret, caring? Maybe something even more than that. Mike couldn't dissect his own psyche. He was not used to noises like this. Nooses. Nonces like that. He'd been running on such limited settings, grief and regret, for so many years that the new sensations were going to take some time getting used to. Mike squeezed Vanessa's hand. Heal up, Vanessa. His voice cracked on her name. Heal up, Vanessa? That is not how voice cracks work. Heal up, Vanessa. He cleared his throat. Get strong and then we'll talk. Mike got up and left the room without glancing back. He tucked all his emotions away for a later time as he navigated the beige-walled hospital corridors to get back to the cheerier, yellow-walled lobby. There, he found Abby, right where he'd left her, in a plush blue chair with an eye shot of the young brunette receptionist who had agreed to keep an eye on Mike's sister while he was gone. Abby was, predictably, drawing when Mike walked up to her. Mike gave the receptionist a wave of thanks as he looked down at Abby. Abby tucked away her drawing pad and stood. Did you tell her I said hi? She said. Yeah. Mike gave Abby a quick hug. Let's go. Mr. Beast. Okay. Mike looked out the living room window as he took a seat next to Abby at the kitchen table. The sun, possibly tired from its day of games with the clouds, seemed to be going down faster than usual. It had put on its dusk PJs, and it now looked like an orange ball. The bottom of the ball had already dipped behind the hills. Mike looked down at his plate. Another ball, a meatball, was sliding off the top of the mound of spaghetti. It rolled to the edge of the plate and stopped. Mike looked at Abby. She was toying with her fork, turning the handle around and around and on her folded napkin. Her gaze was focused on the disappearing sun. Everything okay? Mike asked. I'm just thinking about my friends. You mean Freddie and Chica and the others? She nodded. They're all alone, and no one takes care of them anymore. Abby pulled her gaze from the setting sun and looked at Mike. Can we visit them sometime? No way in hell, Mike thought. His thought must have come clear on his face because Abby looked down at her food. She sighed. Mike thought about the promise he'd made to her at Freddy's. He was going to do better, and he meant it. So, if it meant that much to Abby, Mike touched Abby's arm. When she looked up, he made sure his expression was neutral. You never know what can happen, he said. Abby smiled. She stopped twirling her fork. Mike noticed that the glass next to her napkin was empty. Mike noticed the glass next to her was empty. I forgot the milk. Let's get some milk in chat. Come on, please, guys. I've been asking for milk in chat all day. Let's get some freaking milk in chat. I want some milk in the chat. Mike stepped to the fridge. He opened its door and grabbed a carton of milk. As he closed the door, his gaze landed on Abby's latest drawing, secured near the door handle by a smiley face magnet. The drawing was of Abby, Mike, Vanessa, and the 4 animatronics. They were all inside the table fort at Freddy's. Feeling his lips tip upward in the smallest of smiles, Mike turned away from the drawing. He returned to the table and poured Abby's milk. The milk sloshed into the glass and made a glug-glug sound that acted as a catalyst, snatching Mike from the present and plunking him back to his childhood. In his mind, he was watching milk fill a different glass, his own glass. Mike looked up from the glass, and he saw his mom set down the milk carton and sit across from him. She smiled at him and lifted both arms to join hands with Garrett and Mike's dad. At the same time, Garrett and Mike's dad took Mike's hand, joined the family, and bowed their heads. Mike blinked, and he was back in the present. Mike reached for Abby's hand, and she took it. Sharing a brief smile, they bowed their heads and closed their eyes. Abby spoke. Thanks for this food and everything else. Amen. Dude, I love how freaking Christian the Five Nights at Freddy's movies are. It's awesome. Short and sweet, Mike thought. He squeezed Abby's hand, but he didn't let go of it. Fancifully, Mike wondered briefly what the tip-top of the setting sun, almost gone now, was seeing as it peeked in through their window. He imagined the scene from the sun's perspective, brother and sister, holding hands, head bowed, holding the moment, because it was a perfect one. For this moment, Mike and Abby were happy. Well, what a book. What a good book. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me. Like I said, you guys get a big pot of gold full of Amazon gift cards and cat memes. If you enjoyed this, then stick around for a second because we have the prologue to do. We have the prologue. But there's also an About the Authors section, so we can read that. Scott Cawthon is the author of the best-selling video game series Five Nights at Freddy's. And while he is a game designer by trade, he is first and foremost a storyteller at heart. He is a graduate of the Art Institution of Houston and lives in Texas with his family. Freaking short and sweet. Seth Cuddeback was born in Western Massachusetts. He currently resides in Los Angeles, where he works as a screenwriter for Five Nights at Freddy's, his first feature film. Emma Tammy most recently directed The Left Right Game, a 10-part scripted podcast starring Tessa Thompson, which also acquired Amazon Studio for a series of adaptations, and directed the pilot of Devil in Ohio. Guys, The Devil's in Ohio. for Netflix. Previously, she directed The Wind, which premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival and was distributed by AFC Midnight in 2019. The film is currently certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, and Emma Tammy was recently named one of the 25 female filmmakers to watch by IndieWire. Why are these... Okay. Andrea Rains Wagner is an author, novelist, ghostwriter, essayist, short story writer, screenwriter, copywriter, editor, poet, and a proud member of Kevin Anderson and Associates team of writers. In a past, she prefers not to remember much. She was a claims adjuster, JCPenney catalyst, order taker before computers, appellate court clerk, legal writer, instructor, and lawyer, writing in genres that vary from her chick lit novel Alternative Beauty to her dog How to Write a Book, Dog Parenting, to her self-help book Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise, to ghostwriting memoirs, ghostwriting YA, horror, mystery, and mainstream fiction projects. Andrea still manages to find time to watch the rain and obsess over her dog and her knitting art and music projects. She lives with her husband and said dog on the Washington coast, and if she isn't at home creating something, she can be found walking on the beach. Oh my gosh, I wonder who wrote that. Who wrote that really, really wholesome message about the author of the book that I'm reading right now? I wonder who wrote that. Alright. What the crap is the difference between an epilogue and a prologue? Is the epilogue before? Yeah, I think they are. There may be. Look at these freaking pages. Look at how wasteful this is. There's like a page right here that's black on one side, white on the other. That's fine. That makes sense. And then there's like a whole page right here that is just nothing. Interesting. Alright. Let's get into this epilogue. The blonde boy moved through Freddy's like he was giving a tour to nobody. Caught in shadow upon shadow, the rooms hunkered within the protective walls of the old restaurant. The empty lobby posters still bare of glass. The long hallway with more glassless posters. The security office, its monitors lit up, but no one was watching them. The kitchen, all shiny and still, the parts and service room, a mess of robot parts and empty metal chairs. And of course, the dining room where the animatronics stood rigid on the barely lit stage. That's kind of cool. Like they're still on the stage. Everything was totally quiet. The blonde boy went on down the back hallway. All the doors along the hall were closed except for one. At the very end, the blonde boy went through the door into a small, hardly more than a closet-sized room. He looked at where the light from the hallway landed on the room's bare, dusty checkerboard floor. And beyond that, to the yellow rabbit slumped in the corner. The rabbit was reclined against the mild, wetted cement block wall. Not a rabbit. A man. A man in a horrible costume. A twitching man slouched in a massive spread of blood. It was rust-colored, dried blood that was stuck on the floor, maybe forever. The boy watched the man from the doorway, taking satisfaction in the man's suffering. The boy wanted that suffering to go on as long as the stain on the floor, maybe longer. The boy backed out of the room. He closed the door, sealing the yellow rabbit into a black, black prison. That's Five Nights at Freddy's. Alright, guys. I really appreciate you reading this with me. It was a lot of fun. That was a clean, 2 hours, I think, we've been doing it. How long has it been? Yeah, just about 2 hours. Dang. Alright, guys. I'm sleepy. I gotta do some school. I gotta edit some mystery stuff. and I gotta play Minecraft. So, I can't believe I finished this. It's honestly wild. It's crazy. I didn't expect it to be this much of an adventure. Um, but it was. So thank you guys so much for reading it along, and I hope you learned something. And tune in May when they release the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 novelization, or I may get the Revenge of the Sith novelization on Kindle and then read that. But until then, I hope you guys have a great weekend. I know I'm probably poopy right now. I might take a nap. I'm very sleepy. And I'll smell you guys later. All right.